And I believe we are live. So, JD, Duke 103, Arizona State 47, the second exhibition game for the Blue Devils, and it was an enormous win over the Sun Devils. And in Bobby Hurley's return to Cameron Indoor, things didn't go great for Mr. Hurley, but what'd you think of the first half?
Um, it was a lot of fun. And if I could sort of show you somehow, this really was the second half. This would be raining threes coming from everybody. And as opposed to the first exhibition game, which was against Lincoln, we're now playing with a regular team in the Big 12 and a 103-47 victory. So they came out with the starting five, which looked like the same starting five in the first and second half. So the experience in the backcourt with Caleb Foster, Therese Proctor, the wings, man, they are better than Buffalo wings. These guys are just Cooper Flagg on one side, K2 on the other, and Mal in the middle. And you've got yourself one heck of a starting five. And it was clear that Coach Shire decided that that is his starting five that he's sort of thinking about here, because they were the same starting five for the second half. And it was a lot of fun to watch this. And he has a lot of faith in Foster and Proctor as the elder statesmen bringing the ball up. But all they have to do is just get it off to the wings. And wow, chicken teriyaki, I don't care what kind of wings you call it, but these guys are amazing.
They're, they certainly are, and I know you jumped ahead on us to the second half, but quickly circling back to the first half, Mr. Knipple. Sorry, I've definitely been
Knipple.
saying, yeah, it's definitely Knipple.
And so Knipple triple.
Yes, but I think importantly, he started off slow. He missed his first few shots. He didn't quite seem to have a rhythm. And it was Malawak who had the scoring early on for the Blue Devils. And as you said, it was the starting lineup: Foster, Proctor, Knipple, Flagg, Malawak. And what was interesting to me is that was the group that we thought they needed to get to by the end of the year, in terms of their highest ceiling. And maybe we've been watching Duke basketball for a little bit, and John Shire, we have a good sense for what he's looking for. Obviously, we don't know as much about basketball as he does, but it was interesting. He went to that as the starting lineup, and they were trying to get to Malawach. Like, I don't have the box score for the game, but I have to imagine half the turnovers today for Duke were on trying to get passes into Malawach. Like, it was clear that they were trying to get him going early and often.
And one of the things I'll say about Mal is that, look, we only watched him in two exhibitions. You are going to have a chance this week, I think, to head on over to Duke to actually watch a practice, which is pretty exciting for our fans here, that you're going to be able to give us a live report, or at least be able to tell us what it was like to be in Cameron to watch a practice. But what I've Mal is, as much as we thought he would be the next in line of the Mark Williams, Derek Lively, I think he's way ahead of them. And he hasn't played very much. And, if people think of Derek Lively and Mark Williams, the NBA versions, they have to go back to the very beginning of, let's say, Derek Lively, who we said, this guy was the number one recruit in the country. And then he turned out throughout the course of the year to prove how good he was and how he could affect the game. And then Mark Williams, who put up that Dirk Nowitzki type shot that game that we went did he just do that? And he took a while for him to come along. But now, Jack, there was a couple of times where that combination defense that we thought could happen, where Coop would be the first one to go for it, and then Mal would be right behind him. Exactly. It is going to be a headache for people to go inside against them.
Yeah, and one of those plays that you're referring to was against Jaden Quaintance, who is the only guy in college basketball younger than Cooper Flagg. Was one of the few people who showed up for Arizona State in this exhibition game. I thought he played pretty well, along with Jihad and I guess Amir Ali. Just, giving a little bit of love to the Sun Devils and Coach Hurley. But that play that you're referring to, Quaintance had Cooper Flagg backed up near the basket. Cooper Flagg walled off, straight up, had his arms up, and then Malawach comes around from the other side and swats it off the backboard. And Malawach is going to average 2 blocks a game. I think that's pretty easy to say. And Flagg's going to be over a block per game. And it's just going to be really hard to score inside with those two guys. And I thought, the first half, I thought Tyrese Proctor didn't have a good flow. Was maybe forcing it a little bit early on. And I thought Caleb Foster looked pretty good early on, and he looked really good, I thought, in the second half. But I thought, Cooper Flagg had a good game. It was just a little bit, under the radar. He had a few moments here and there. But I think that's kind of the thing with Cooper, is that he's not a guy who's going to go out and, take 15, 20 shots. He's just going to make the right plays throughout a basketball game. And I think that kind of showed in today's game, where he didn't need to do anything special and the team looked amazing.
So I want to go to Jay Quaintas for a minute and say to you that, did you catch how they wound up with him? Because when Kentucky broke up and a couple of the players went along with Calipari, how did they get Quaintance? They told us they got the NIL money together to draw him to ASU. And that is the nature of the college game. That someone of that caliber, who was the highest ranked player that ASU ever got, they got him because they got the NIL money together in order to attract them to ASU.
Certainly, and I got news for you. I bet a lot of the guys at Duke got a nice NIL package this season, along with a lot of other guys around college basketball, and especially the high-profile players who are in the transfer portal. There was talk about several guys getting, over $1 million. And listen, it's a good time to be a college basketball player. Maybe not a college basketball coach, as I'm sure we'll talk about in another episode, but it's a great time to be a college basketball player. And, the first half, with about 5 minutes to go, I'm just looking at my notes here. They were up 28-10. I guess I skipped a little bit ahead. I wanted to note some of the lineup changes quickly before we get into the second half, because I think that's where a lot of the fun of this game certainly was. At the 16-minute mark, after that first segment that we always like to talk about.
Yep.
First 3 subs.
Basketball is a game. We should tell our fans and listeners that for us, the college game is actually broken into 2 halves, of which there are 5 quarters. And that each of the 4-minute segments are very much how the college coach thinks about the game, because they're, sometimes they go over the 4 minutes in each time, but they know that the break is coming. And so they do coach to the 5 segments of each game. And this is a very different way to watch college basketball.
100%. And that's typically how timeouts are managed by coaches, along with substitutions, right? And The other thing that I thought was interesting, as you know, I'm getting into the lineups and the substitutions here, is that after that first scrimmage, you know, it was kind of clear that, at least in my opinion, that Coach Shire had a clear first 8. And that was even more cemented today with the first 3 subs coming in together being the 3 key transfers in Gillis, James, and Brown. And they came in right at that 16-minute mark, and it was a pretty similar substitution pattern in the second half. And then, let's see, Harris was the 9th man again today. I thought Evans played pretty well last time. He might get ahead of Harris, but that was not the case. And Harris played well today. And Evans was the 10th man, but he did play well enough to get himself first half minutes. So I think that did go to show that the way he played, and I thought pretty well in the second half against Lincoln, did, you know, bear fruit for him and lead to him getting some important first half minutes today. And then I'll just wrap it up with this, JD, unless you want to talk about anything else in the first half. But they finished the first half 37-21 up, and while it was 28-10 with 4 minutes to go, which is just insane to hold a Big 12 team at this point to 10 points with 4 minutes to go in the half. Arizona State did play better at the end of the half, and Coach Shire even called a timeout after a couple of made buckets by Arizona State.
So I'll only slightly tweak that, not disputing what you're saying, but I had it at the break at 21-8. And then actually ASU and Duke played even 13-13 for the next till the next break. And it was at that point 31 or 30-17. They'd each scored 13 points, and it was actually, you thought ASU was actually going to give them a game.
Yeah, and to your point, we're not disagreeing. It's just how you slice the game up, right? And
Absolutely.
Right. And I completely agree. I thought this was going to turn into a close game, and then before the Knipple show, I want to point out one thing which was very important. Caleb Foster starts the second half. He drives to the basket, gets fouled. What happens next?
After Caleb got fouled,
he goes to the free throw line. He hits both free throws.
Yes, I do have that in my notes from the game with exclamation point saying that was a rarity.
I thought he was just great today. And I know Corey Alexander apparently coached him. I think he's coached half the guys who've played for Duke over the past handful of years. And was giving him a hard time for that air ball that he had like a little bit later in the second half. But other than that, he was just on the money. But obviously, this second half was all about Colin Knipple. And he got set up by an off-ball screen by Cooper Flagg. And remind me, JD, before we finish this video, there's someone else on the team who I think is an excellent off-ball screener. I want to give him his due. But then he gets a fast break 3, which starts with a Proctor pass to Flagg, who swings it to Knipple in the corner, who hits it over 2 guys. And then he gets the and 1-3 at the top, and then he hits another one. And it's just, you can feel the electricity in Cameron. And it went from, okay, it might not be Colin Knipple's night to, it's Colin Knipple's night, all right. Like, this guy is just, he's one of the best shooters. And I mean, I don't want to say this line like in college basketball. I think it's a little premature maybe for that. But he certainly looks like he could be one of those kind of guys.
He is big. I mean, he's got a big frame to him when he squares to shoot. And he's 6'7".
Yep, that's what they list him at.
He is having him and Flagg on the wings. I'm telling you. Let's see. extra hot sauce on those wings when the two of them are out there. But then think about this, Jack. At half, it was a 16-point game. And then he goes absolutely crazy. And then the rest of them do, because they shoot some crazy 13 for 17 at one point from 3-point range. And that's not just K2. It was like everybody was shooting threes.
They scored 66 points in the second half. And I don't know where you decided to put your line of demarcation. Once they were up by about, I don't know, 40, I kind of stopped taking real serious notes. But when they were on that run with Knipple, it was a 19-2 run in like 4.5 minutes to start the second half. And it went from, oh yeah, the defense is really good, but the offense needs some time, to, okay, I think the offense is ready. And like, the 3-point barrage, it's hard to, I mean, I was going to go back a little bit farther, but I guess the the most recent example I could think of is the Celtics against the Knicks on opening night for the NBA.
You did have to bring that one up. Thank you.
I was going to go with the Warriors, and what they used to do, but I was trying to think of something a little bit more recent. And it's hard to think of something in college basketball where a team shoots quite like that I can think of, at least. And yeah, I'm sorry. It hurts me too, but yeah, it was just, and everybody got into it, as you said. It wasn't just Knipple. It was
Mason Gillis, Sion James.
He hit 3.
Darren Harris, Foster,
Proctor.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And if this is going to be the way they are going to play, which is fast on offense, having open threes, and then on defense, they are, even when the starting 5 was out, it's Mason Gillis, who's just a monster. In terms of, he's a big guy. He reminds me of the guy I loved at Tennessee.
It's funny you said that. I was just thinking he's got a similar frame. He's got a similar frame to Grant Williams.
Grant Williams, absolutely.
And by the way, so does Sion James. He's a little bit, maybe an inch shorter, a little bit more mobile, but similar. Like, he's probably 6'5", 220, 225, and he's just like, you run into a brick wall when you run into that guy.
So when you lose, so when Coach Shire goes to the next 5, these are experienced, tough, big, not height, but big in strength. And no one's pushing this 5, the next 5 around. This is going to be fascinating. And we're going to find out real quickly when they take on Kentucky, Arizona, Kansas, Auburn, all here before Christmas. And it's going to be pretty exciting we will really know very quickly how good this team is.
I completely agree. And it brings me back to last year, where one of the knocks on Duke's team was that they were a little bit soft. And, Coach Shire clearly made it a point in the transfers that he brought in that he was going to bring in not only experience, but guys who are physical, who have a presence about them, and just play hard. Like, these guys they don't stop moving. They're constantly in action. And I wanted to bring this up because, I don't think a lot of people pay too much attention to this, but Malik Brown, who's the third of the transfers here, he's not built like the other two. He's a little bit taller, a little lankier, right? And he's the center, comes in for Malawach. And he's not the shot blocker that Malawach is, but he's a good perimeter defender. He gets deflections. And the thing I think he does really well, he's an excellent off-ball screener. He gets guys open for 3, backdoor cuts, etc. And while he's not he did attempt a corner three today. It's not really his game. He finds ways to make other guys better offensively without, needing the ball or needing to score, which I think is really important on this Duke team where pretty much everybody can score. And if it was their night, they could score 20. Like of the 10 guys who played, if you told me it was, 8 of those guys, 9 of those guys who they scored 20 that night, I wouldn't say, that's crazy. It certainly could happen. And I just think it's important to, point out some of the little things that go on off ball, away from the action.
Well, and thinking of pointing out the other things, in the second half, they went to a zone. And when Mal wasn't in, and that zone is 5 tough guys. And toughness is not an adjective that I used to use for the last couple of years for Duke teams. They would have, certainly when Mark Williams was in and when Derek Lively was in, they were exciting. They were able to go to a block, but you never had the sense of physicality playing against Duke. This is a different Duke team.
Right. Like for example, the team that Duke lost to in Coach Shire's first year with Derek Lively in the second round of the tournament when they lost to Tennessee. And that team was not only big, but physical. And while they may have got a little bit of a benefit in the fact that the refs just decided they weren't going to call very much that day. Listen, if that's it, they were consistent throughout the game. And they let things go, and it was a very physical game, and it certainly benefited Tennessee. This Duke team is ready for that kind of game. They can play in a up and down, fast paced game. And to your point on the different defenses, before when Malawach I believe was still in, I'm not 100% sure, but early in the second half when they were on the big run, one of the plays that they got, which ended up as a Proctor 3, was they started off in a full court press, which turned into a trap with Flagg and Foster trapping the guy in the corner. Bad pass. Knipple. I gotta get that right. I definitely gotta get that right. Knipple gets the ball, and no, he passes it to Proctor for the triple. Who also, by the way, had a nice steal and pass from his back.
That was great.
Cooper Flagg. That was an awesome play.
He was on the floor for that. That was a really great play. So there's a lot of little things going on there, but so Bobby Hurley was in the house. His son gets it at the end of the game, and fan favorite Hubbard drives to the basket. Gets his 2. Fans go crazy. Terrific picture early on of Coach K, Bobby Hurley, and John Shire. And then for a while, it was really kind of fun for all of you ACC fans when Corey Alexander was calling the game and they had Grant Hill on. And they were just having a lot of fun reminiscing on the days when Corey made a point to say that he won 2 out of 3 times at Duke, and the other time did not go well. But he did win 2 out of 3 times. Corey Alexander was a terrific, terrific player at UVA.
So you've told me. Can't say I watched him, But speaking of, well, first of all, Spencer Hubbard is, the human exclamation point. And if this Duke team keeps playing like this, he's going to get a lot more playing time than he did last season. And my other point, since you brought up ACC fans, I just want to get this out there. Later in the game, they had the graphic up of what the coaches thought would be, the top 10, or I guess I ranked all the teams, the top 18.
Yes, all of them.
They had Notre Dame at number 11. I think Notre Dame is going to be, somewhere around 5 or 6. I think they're going to be really good. Now, I just want to get that out there now so we can see, a few months from now if my record's going to be good or not. Because I keep it to myself, I could come out a few months from now and say, I told you so. But now you can also say, see, you were wrong. They're terrible. So we'll find out. But I think they're going to be pretty good in one of the more challenging games in ACC.
So let's talk just quickly about guard play, since I always have a hard time, as you know, with Foster, much more in love with Tyrese Proctor's game. Foster had a good night. And one of the things that you pointed out to me when we text during the game is that the guards, even though it was Lincoln, the guards for Lincoln were better than the guards for Arizona State. And therefore, I still don't feel this sense of what happens when a couple of very good, aggressive guards challenge Foster and Proctor. And that's why I'm really happy that they have these 4 games coming up against, top 20 teams, so we can see what happens and are they the backcourt. I mean, yes, they can play really well in these exhibitions, but when they start going up against Kansas and Kentucky and Arizona, we're going to find out how good they are.
Totally. I wish I had my notes from that Lincoln game, because it was one guard in particular for Lincoln who was just hitting very tough shots consistently throughout the game. And I would love to give him some credit because, looking at Arizona State's guards, he could certainly play for them. He would have been their best guard if that's how, they're going to play moving forward. But yeah, to your point, just to expand upon that, the other thing that we had talked about coming into the season was what happens if Foster or Proctor are injured or in foul trouble. Who else do we have? And I think we've got a little bit of an answer. We thought, you and I both thought after Countdown to Craziness that part of that answer could be Mr. Knipple. And I still think he's part of the equation, but I don't think he's the quote-unquote third string point guard. I think that title goes to Sion James. From what I've seen in these exhibition games, he's not a pure point guard, but he can certainly get the job done. And then even guys like Flag. Flag's not a point guard, but you get good passing from guys like Flag and Gillis and Brown. So the ball still moves even when you don't have a pure point guard. But I think, James and Knipple give me a little bit more reassurance that if something were to happen to Proctor or Foster, who, by the way, Proctor missed some time his freshman year and his sophomore year, so the track record would say he's going to miss, a couple of games. And obviously Foster missed the end of last season. So it's hard to say. But I like what we've seen from Sion James, his passing ability.
So one of the things that I would do as a Duke opponent would be, look, once they get the ball up and they can get the ball in the hands of either K2 or Coop, it's a problem with Mal in the middle. It is just a problem. So what would I do? I would press the guards. And we'll find out how good Foster and Tyrese are with a ton of pressure. And that's one of the ways that I would try to see if that can slow down the Duke offense.
Yeah, and we'll see. Not a ton of teams are going to be able to do that. But
right.
But there will be some who certainly can. I'm sure you didn't see this, but Kansas played Arkansas in an exhibition game.
And lost.
They didn't. Kansas was missing a few guys, Hunter Dickinson, Ryland Griffin.
Yep.
But they lost. And, listen, Calipari, the coach, you can have your qualms with. Calipari, the recruiter, I don't think anyone's better. And he's got another guard this year. Last year I loved Reed Shepard and Rob Dillingham from the beginning. Yep. He's got another guard this year. He's from New York City. His name's Boogie Fland. Type of matchup that you're talking about, unfortunately, Duke doesn't play Arkansas, but I would love to see Fland and Wagner and John L. Davis going up against Duke. I think that would be a ton of fun. But unfortunately, we won't get to see it.
Wait. Did John L. Davis, who, as you know, is one of my favorites, is he on Arkansas now with Calipari? Oh, my. For those of our listeners that don't know John L. Davis, just watch an Arkansas game. He's just a phenomenal offensive player, just great. Wow. Arkansas is going to be a handful. I think it's a really good point, Jack, to say that their backcourt is strong.
And I want to emphasize that point by saying I don't know if it wasn't his day. I don't know if he was dealing with an injury. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know the details of the game. It was a little bit of a weird thing. They did quarters. They had like kind of unlimited fouls. It wasn't a typical game, okay? But John L. Davis didn't start. He was their third best guard, and it wasn't close. That's how good the I almost said Kentucky guards. It's kind of a habit. The Arkansas guards are. We went off on a little bit of tangent. That's my fault. I'll just get us back on track, and we can wrap things up here with Duke. So, a week from Monday, we get our first real game in Cameron, 7 o'clock against Maine. But before that, so we'll give you guys a preview probably later this week. Probably get that up probably Thursday, Friday. We'll figure it out, JD. But before that, I'm going to go down for Duke's having an open practice Wednesday. And Wednesday night, JD and I, maybe Wednesday night, we'll figure out the timing. But at some point, we'll record an episode for you guys, and I'll give you guys my thoughts from practice, just things that I saw. I'm sure JD will have a lot of questions, and we'll get you guys some content from a little bit of a unique look at a Duke practice.
Pretty jealous of that you get to go to Cameron and watch them work out, and I'm sure your insights are going to be fabulous from watching and listening to what Shire says as he breaks it down, saying that's not the way I want you to do this, and all sorts of things. So really looking forward to your report from Cameron.
Yeah, I'm excited. Should be a lot of fun. Never seen an open practice for anything other than like a high school team, right? So, and not a good high school team at that.
And so you're watching a pro team. No, Duke.
They're basically a pro team. They're to your point, Coach K and Calipari. This is a nice tie-in at the end here. They were doing a podcast together, and Coach K said, basically these guys are pros now. They're getting paid, right? Like, what's the difference? So, with that, if you guys are new, subscribe. We're gonna be talking Duke. Really all things basketball. I'll do some NBA draft stuff. We'll do some player pathways with Duke. Lots of fun things. Like this video. It helps us grow. Share it with a friend. Comment down below. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.